Hello and welcome to Capes, Cowls, and Crusaders. I'm Kat, joined by Ernesto, El Pinguino. Iceberg in the Caribbean, is that an orca?
Yeah, man, orcas, god damn, they are so stereotypically against us.
For sure. Well, welcome everyone.
Welcome.
People will be showing up. So I was actually at Spencer's Gifts yesterday, and check this out. I got this Joker shirt. Can you believe this is the first and only Batman-related shirt I own?
Really?
Really? I don't have any Batman apparel at
all this time, that is your only Batman paraphernalia.
I did have a patch that I sewed on for my jeans had a hole in it, so I put like the classic black and yellow Batman patch logo over it, but it didn't hold very long. But that's it. This is the first time. It didn't occur to me until I saw this in the store. I'm like, I don't have any Batman outfits.
You're always showing off your comic book collection involving the Dark Knight, but you don't own any apparel. But at the same time, it's also fitting that is your first purchase.
Oh, it's very fitting.
And if you look at your history, you went to Chicago one time and you took a picture down the block where they shot the truck scene.
I did. It was so cool being there. I put my hand right on the tile wall where the Batpod's tire hits it when it spins back around. I walked down the street. I used my cane to double as a machine gun and walked down for posing pictures. 2 intersections away from where Joker was standing, because that intersection was too busy, but it was still so cool standing there. I'm like, it's only like 10 city blocks away, and it's like dark outside, but fuck it, I'm going. I'm not missing this.
It's now or never. You never know when you're gonna get that chance again, especially when you were able to be more mobile. So that was like, damn, I got to do this now or never.
Yeah, that's my feet were killing me at that time too, and I managed to pull it off.
Quick question: I've never been to Chicago. Is that mall scene where he's driving through with the Batpod? Is that in Chicago as well?
Where
he blasts doors?
It might be. I don't know.
Because it's like, I mean, it has to be in the same city. It
kind of looks like it, because the entrance is sort of like underground, like you're coming off from a parking garage or something, or from Lower Wacker maybe,
or a subway.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just looking at something that I would totally buy Chicago having, like an underground mall kind of sector.
Yeah. If I got a couple more blocks, we could have rounded the corner where the bank was, that street where the clowns shoot the
oh yeah, that was there too.
And they dangle across over to the bank roof. But that was a little further. Hit it back.
What you could have done, you could have taken a picture on top of that high rise where the MetLife building is. And have someone with a drone just take a picture looking through the binoculars.
Yeah.
In the cold dead of night. At that altitude. Shit.
Yeah.
I know we have people getting ready to come in. I know we're going to be discussing, but we do have some news in the world of comic books, don't we?
Yes, and real quick, hello Ash D. Hey guys, good evening to you both. He says, oh boy, this episode was crazy, so much to unpack. Yes, I'm going to be getting to that in a minute. So would you like to share that comic book news?
Yes, I got a few here. On the one hand, like this would be like a bit of a left field kind of mention, but it does need to be mentioned because it is within technically the world of comic books. The new G.I. Joe #1 issue grabs 225,000 orders from comic book stores. So that seems to be a pretty big deal. Like, I don't know how many of our viewers read G.I. Joe comic books. I've only ever read a couple just because they were like promos for free comic book day, but must be doing something right from whoever's promoting the series to get that many pre-orders. And I can't recall the last time a G.I. Joe comic book was in the news cycle, basically.
Yeah, I don't read that either.
Yeah. Other stuff is Venom 3, The Last Dance, open to 51 million domestically, $175 million worldwide. A lot of people will say that that is the lowest opening in the trilogy. Other people will say it is better than most people expected. Either or, it really depends on who's doing the math here.
Yeah, 124 internationally for overseas. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Dependent on those numbers because it needs 450 to turn a profit, apparently.
It does, but it also shows that there has been a significant decline.
Mm-hmm.
I know the second one, you can probably call it the outlier because it did come out right at the tail end of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it was one of those special cases where, yeah, it had a pretty big opening in comparison to the first movie, but then it dropped like a motherfucker after that. So it didn't even make it made like at least a little bit less than half or over half of what the original made. But hey,
Yeah.
and you saw it, didn't you?
Not in theaters. That was 3 years ago, October 21. I can't remember why I didn't see that in theaters, but I got the
No, but you saw the new one, right? You saw the new
Oh,
one.
the new one. Oh yeah, I saw the new one. I thought, okay, it's the least cheesy of the three, but that didn't mean it was better. I thought it was the worst of the three. It's like
Yeah.
Eddie doesn't have a character arc. The codex logic that they're coming up with makes no sense. I don't even think that's comic related how they're trying to tie that in. And the whole movie feels like 110-minute tease for Noel that you get nothing for. And
Shocking,
the reason and we know this doesn't take place in the Tobey Maguire universe because it's a different kind of Venom. And it seems the only reason they cast Reese Fons in this film as some hippie is because they wanted to make it clear that without having to break the fourth wall too much, that this is not the Andrew Garfield universe either. It's its own thing. So we haven't met the Spider-Man of this universe. Now, again, I've always said I don't know if part of Sony's deal with Marvel Studios is that as long as Spider-Man is in the MCU, maybe they're not allowed to put Spider-Man in these movies because otherwise, why not? Like even Tom Hardy,
it doesn't even have to be Tom Holland. It could be either Maguire.
That's what I mean. That's what I mean. It could be their own. They could have their own actor, Spider-Man, in their own Sony universe. But
yeah.
Even Tom Hardy said that even though this is the end of the Eddie Brock storyline, he said he'd be totally game to come back if they let him fight Spider-Man.
I mean, yeah, and money talks as well.
Yeah.
Because I'm pretty sure he got a massive payday for this to be his quote-unquote last one. And I'm pretty sure he's going to get participation points with whatever this movie makes overhead.
Yeah, this one just didn't... It felt just totally pointless. It's like, okay, you told us some lore about Null, and then and then you end the Eddie Venom story, sort of, but it's like, it's like, I don't know, it's just very disappointing.
I just feel that a character like Null, I mean, I get it. He's part of the Spider-Man lore, especially since the Venom book started getting a massive attention once Donny Cates took over that series, which is how we got the King in Black storyline, which explains the origin of the symbiote. So again, a lot of hype behind that comic book series. So when you're telling people, oh yeah, we're going to get Null in the series, on the one hand, that's cool for people who like the Venom and are reading the solo comics. Hello, Cinema Gulp. On the other hand, it kind of undercuts the potential of this character showing up in the future, because if we don't get nothing here, I mean, sure, they can probably ignore it and put it under the rug and bring him back in, because at the end of the Eternals, you see Kit Harington's character grab the sword, and the sword has a little bit of a dark matter thing going in there. You can tie that to the King in Black storyline very easily.
I mean, they say they drew from the King in Black, and I guess for the little prologue, but it's like,
and I'm just saying, I think Null would be better served MCU proper than
Yeah, I rolled my eyes so much when I'm like, oh, this is a springboard for Null. It's like you spent an hour 50 minutes trying to get people excited about a character who literally does nothing and doesn't show up at all, except to be in his prison or whatever. It's like that. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I don't picture this movie. I don't know if it might get to 400. I don't know. I think it's going to be completely dependent on overseas numbers, though.
Yeah, I can't see it do worse than Joker. Fully do.
Oh yeah. Ash says, Wow, I didn't know G.I. Joe was still so big since those movies kind of flopped.
Well, the movies flop, but this franchise started as toys.
That's true.
So those toys still sell, and
Hmm.
I think IDW is the one who owns the licensing for the comic book series, because I believe IDW was also the same publisher that did that massive, I mean massive by comic book standards, that massive crossover between GI Joe, Transformers, uh Ron the Space Knight, and the Micronauts. They did a whole crossover event with all those different franchises. And even in the movies, the Rise of the Beast, at the end of that movie, the G.I. Joe are being introduced.
Yeah.
So it doesn't
My
surprise me that it generates it, but I have to believe that there has to be a massive creative team shakeup for people to want to pre-order that many books. Because again, comic book stores, when they order a lot of those books in that amount, they're hoping to sell them. Because if they
yeah.
don't sell, they lose money.
My friend and co-host Dave from Unifying Force, he collects a lot of GI Joe stuff at all the conventions that he goes to.
Yeah.
He's big
There's
into
still a
GI
market.
Joe. So that's
Yeah, there is still a market, but the movies just haven't really served the franchise in any shape or
yeah.
form.
Oh, Cinema Gulp says the Penguin might be the best show of 2024. 2 more weeks till we see how it lands. Ash says agreed. You don't even have to think of it as a Batman universe. It's still a great mafia show. Sophia just owns the screen. Ben says I don't think they'll do a second season because I think that'll be the Batman 2, but somewhere in there I think the Court of Owls works perfectly.
Well, they are underground.
And Ash says true nostalgia will sell every time. The
And before I wrap things up, we do know that 2026 is going to be the year that Spider-Man 4 comes out on July
July
2026.
24th.
And it may be, oh, yeah, and it might be competing with, well, not competing directly, but within the same month of Christopher Nolan's.
Within the week, because it comes out a week apart. His is July 17th and theirs is July 24th. And I would not be
Yeah,
surprised if Spider-Man moves up to 4th of July weekend if they get it done in time.
yeah, it may move forward because July, traditionally speaking, I'm just throwing this out there. July belongs to Christopher Nolan.
Yeah.
If you look at all of his movies, they have performed amazingly well in July. And it's also going to be Holland versus Holland because Holland is supposed to be attached to Christopher Nolan's next movie. And it's supposed to be a sci-fi vampire.
That
Alleged.
there's no reliable sources because I've heard other people say in very heavy detail that it's a quasi, not quite remake of Blue Thunder about in futuristic New York City with these helicopter cops. One's more of a veteran, the other kid's a rookie,
Oh my
and
God. Why? Oh, I have such.
and that and that he's supposedly tasking members of his team to watch Blue Thunder before they start working on the movie, even though it's not a remake. And that was one of those things where it's so detailed, like and so obscure of a reference. It's like it could be real, but then there's so many people saying shit, so nobody really
Wow,
knows.
Blue Thunder, really?
Well, that's who knows.
No,
It's
but it's been first of all, it's been a while since I've seen Blue Thunder. I only saw it once with my dad, just randomly, and I remember that scene where Roy Shatter just flies the helicopter over another helicopter in a stunt. So now I'm thinking, shit, this movie's gonna be stunts palooza, considering how Nolan likes to make everything as practical as possible.
oh hey lemon pie. There's hi cat Ernesto.
Hello, can I have a slice of you?
uh, oh wait, what is Nolan Dick? Oh, Cinegulp says I thought that was a fake poster cat. No, I don't know what poster you're referring to.
I can look it up.
Yeah, you can look it up. I didn't know about a poster. I just read an article that was going really deep on the whole Blue Thunder thing, and I thought, again, it's such an obscure thing to reference that it and so much detail there that it could be real, but who knows? Because then again, the first thing that came out about his movie is that it wasn't sci-fi related. So,
Mm-hmm.
and supposedly his version would have sci-fi type helicopter. I don't know. So it's probably not true either. Who knows where people get their ideas? And there's a lot of vampire 1920 stuff coming up. We got Nosferatu in December. We got Sinners next March.
We have Blade,
So,
never.
I mean, more.
We have Blade, never. I mean, we do get the video game, so that is something at least.
Yeah. Oh, the Blue Thunder one, Cinema Gulp says. I didn't see that. I didn't. Yeah, I didn't know somebody made a fake poster for that. But that's probably why they made it then, to source
Yeah.
from
So
what
I
I was
have this.
talking about.
So I found this article from Gizmodo.com. It says that
Ooh, what
since
about
Universal,
Airwolf Lemon Pie says? That's another good option.
yeah. So it says here, since Universal announced it was teaming with Nolan, fans everywhere have been speculating about the nature of the film. One rumor is that it's a horror movie. Another is that it's a helicopter action movie like 1983's Blue Thunder. And the Hollywood Reporter story about Holland's casting writes the quote, the setting is not present day, although it is unclear whether it's set in the past or the future. Well, we heard two of those could potentially be true. IO9 got word from a reliable source that the Nolan film is a vampire movie set in the 20s.
Yeah, so
So how reliable that is, we don't know.
So who knows? Until we start seeing leaked set photos, we're not really gonna have an idea. So
Although it does go back to this argument, well, not an argument, a discussion that you
and says, well, he's got his Oscar, so why not just go crazy? Yeah.
I mean, we've had Interstellar, that's as crazy as you can get. But I will say that we did have a conversation, you and I, at one point about maybe Nolan should go into more areas that he's not used to exploring, like maybe make a straight up comedy, like a British comedy of some sorts, maybe make a horror movie of some type.
He said that in an interview, somebody asked him about that, saying, do you ever picture going back to your roots, making smaller character driven stuff? And he said no, not that he didn't want to, but he feels that because so few people have the privilege he does with getting these budgets to make these mammoth movies all over the world, that he feels it's his responsibility to do that. Like, he's like, yeah, I would love to make another drawing room type thing, but so many other people could do that already. And he says it's almost like it's too much of a privileged position to be in to turn down the opportunity to do something big, especially since the audience kind of expects that from him now in scope, if at any rate. But
I mean, his trajectory has been going up since day one. So, I mean, that fits with his personality. But I also wouldn't be surprised if he were to challenge himself while say, hey, I'm going to make my next movie. It's going to be X, Y, and Z. But he can also make something small on the side without people knowing about it and then release it whenever he feels like it. He does have that. He does have that blank check to himself that he can do it.
Because he did produce that short documentary film about were they artists, their brothers or something? I can't remember what their names were, but it's on his filmography. You could look it up. Well, I mean, not necessarily right now, but you get the idea. So yeah, you could do stuff like that aside. But anyway,
we've already done the appetizer. Let's get to the main course.
Yes, and now here we go. Nicholas Cage. Yeah, Ben says Nicholas Cage helicopter version of Top Gun. Yeah.
Well, hell yeah. Put that bunny down.
So here we are. Episode 6 is apparently there's a bit of a time jump going into this one because winter has come to Gotham.
Let's call it a bit. Jesus Christ.
Yeah, winter has come to Gotham, and Penguin has taken his 2 little mushroom plants and has since grown them to reproduced a lot of them. He's employed the neighbors, all the people in Crown Point, to work for him, and it's a big drug operation. And he's making a deal with the triad, trying to distribute this stuff. And he's having fantasies about being like Rex Khaleesi someday. He says, "Look, I'm helping out the people of Crown Point. You know, these politicians, they turn off all the electricity and give it all to rich people. What a big surprise! And I'm gonna help people, give them money to help them get through all this." And he's like, "And Victor, you're a part of it too. People are gonna remember us someday." Oswald Cobb and Victor Aguilar, and he's like, and Victor kind of likes that. And I'm like, oh wow, Oz's operation has certainly taken off quite a bit since we last saw him, and I'm surprised it's been this successful without, Sal and Sophia being able to find them.
Yeah.
But then again, the people of Crown Point are pretty desperate, so I can imagine they would be good at keeping secrets.
You know what this is reminding him of? He's reminding you of what El Chapo would do, and how wherever he lived at the time, that town will forever see him as a hero regardless of his crimes. So you're seeing some of that here where Crown Point, if he's able to succeed where he wants to go, they're going to look at him as a hero and they'll always be on his side regardless of what he does.
Well, it's the same with Pablo Escobar in Colombia, or not everywhere in Colombia, but certain places.
Yeah.
Uh, because he brought them, he build a bunch of youth soccer fields, and it would be it eventually became like the equivalent of AAA in baseball to farm out eventually future great players, and uh, or like Frank Lucas and or Bumpy Johnson rather in Harlem buying dinner and Thanksgiving dinners for everybody to buy the bribery of everybody in the city, and it's that type of stuff. You take care of the people you work with, and the people who, even if you don't work with them, you want to make sure they're all happy. So
Bane
meanwhile,
did that in the comics one time.
hmm?
Bane did that in the comics one time during the Forever Evil arc back during the New 52. When the heroes were gone, Bane took over Gotham, and after the city was destroyed, what does Bane do? He gives back to the people.
Mhm.
And then Batman, when he comes back, he does tell him, "Thank you for helping the people, but I'm going to shut you down now." And he takes him out in the next panel.
That wasn't the Nightfall storyline, was it?
No, that was in the Forever Evil story arc.
Yeah. Um, Meanwhile, at the Falcone mansion, we see Salvatore is living there now with her, and she finds him in the kitchen. She's like, it's not really custom for guests or prisoners to wander around the house. He's like, what? He's just making food and sharing it with her, and they're kind of bonding, and it's like, okay, so this is like more of a legit partnership. She doesn't have a gun in her hand anymore, so they're like totally. It's like, yeah, they're gonna go for it. And they're like, well, we don't know where Oz is, but it's like, yeah, well, the Bliss is around, so we'll just follow the Bliss. We'll find him. And Sal's talking about how, well, they're doing business with the triads and stuff. They're getting the. She's like, he's trying to basically convince Sal's trying to convince Sophia that, look, allegiances don't matter. What matters is who's got the product to sell. They're gonna buy from whoever it is. Doesn't matter. That's something I learned from your dad. And she's like, okay. She kind of defers to him. And she's like, okay, well then we'll just show people that it's the cost of doing business with Oz. And so the next day, we find out that while Oz is at his apartment tending to his mom, who's frustrated because, again, the electricity has been mostly turned off in Crown Point. Victor was making some scrambled eggs and was really pathetic. And Oz is trying to remind her of this diner they used to go to with the sticky plastic menus. And Victor suddenly mentions that, oh, yeah, Jack went down to get some groceries or whatever, just Oz's brother. And she's like, oh, yeah. And she gets excited at the idea that Jack might come back, and Oz is upset. He's like, no, you're just going to make it worse. Don't mention my brothers. You don't have any right to talk about them. So I'm like, and he's like, Oz, it's helping, So that was an interesting kind of little dynamic there. And you could tell Francis is just not happy with Oz since
There's been
situations are not.
a lot of interesting dynamics in this few scenes. You mentioned Sophia and Sal, and they're kind of like, in a way, because it's kind of like a dichotomy. In this scene, they're both scheming, but in the next scene, they're just having a family dinner. It's like those two
Right.
polar opposites of the same coin. On the one hand, yeah, these two family members are technically breaking bread, even though Sal was the one who cooked the meal. But in this one, Oz is just trying to, do the best he can to just have like a normal breakfast, just as normal as possible, even though he's going through the ringer trying to keep a roof over their heads and he's doing everything for his mother, by the way.
Yeah.
On the one hand, with Sophia and Sal, you see a little bit of that humanity that's still in there, because the recipe that he cooks in the kitchen was one that his recently deceased wife taught him to do, and just having a bite of it just breaks him down, because it just reminds him, shit, I lost my wife, my kid. So it kind of reminds me of, and I'll get to Oz and his mom right now, but it reminds me of that interview that Will Smith had when they were promoting the first Suicide Squad movie. And they're talking about, the Suicide Squad members and the Joker. And Will Smith pretty much aptly compared the difference between the characters with the bombs in their head and the Joker. It's like, the bad guys, they do bad things, but they have a reason for doing it. And the Joker is just pure evil. So
Yeah.
Sal is a bad guy, Sophia is a bad woman, and Penguin is a bad guy, but they are doing their bad deeds for a reason. It's selfish, but to them, they don't see it as selfish. They're doing it for people they love. And I like that there is still that bit of humanity in these characters. And with Oz, as you'll probably explain in the next coming scenes, he is holding on to whatever's left of his humanity, because it is all centered on his mother. He is caring for her. He is making sure that she is stable as possible, like to the point of trying to have heat in the house where they're using a gas powered plant here to get all the energy they need, because the city is not, and Crown Point is not getting it. Only the main hub of Gotham City is getting it. So everything is depending on whatever threads he has left with his mom, because the moment you cut those threads, I'm not saying that Oz is pure evil, even the character in the comics, but he is holding on to whatever is keeping him at bay from truly becoming a monster.
Yes, and Ash T says that scene was so sad. He just should have let Victor give her good news. Right, because it's like when Victor, lied about, oh yeah, Penguin killed the Falcones, and she doesn't really question it or whatever, and because of her dementia, it's like you saw how much she lit up when he said that Jack went to get groceries, because of course she's not going to remember anyway.
Yeah. But I do see why Oz doesn't want to encourage it, because he doesn't want to see her get her hopes up and get happy, and then all of a sudden get sad right away. That's just it. I can see that being painful for Oz just to watch.
Ash says, how does it help to keep breaking her heart in the speech she gives later about her dignity? So heartbreaking, and really makes you feel for Penguin. It makes me feel for her a little more, but
I mean, she's still a bitch. She's still a bitch, but you do get to see that, hey, this is kind of a shitty situation.
This is the show, just a fabulous job to make you root for the bad guys. Yes. So they're sitting there at breakfast, and then Oz gets a phone call. Whoever it is being hysterical about it. They, oh my God, what are you talking about? And then Victor gets out his cell phone to check, and the news is showing that 3 guys who've been running Bliss for Penguin from other crews have been murdered and hanged, and their fingers, or at least one pinky finger cut off. And Penguin's like, oh, Sophia not even being original, trying to spread the word. And so he figures he's got to, go give the big speech. So he goes down to their headquarters underground, and he gets everybody's attention. And he comes up with this idea, and he says, hey, we're going to give the stuff away for free as free samples to get everybody, hooked on our drug. And I thought, oh, okay, you're doing Kananga's thing from Live and Let Die. It's a great idea. And he's like, yeah, I don't care who told you can't sell it. Nothing. Just drop out, bring the shit and drop it off wherever it needs to go, and just be on your way. And don't worry about Sophia or Maroni or any of those guys. Just do it. So Victor sets off with his batch that he's got to deliver, and he gets cornered by Squid. And Squid is, we were told that he was like the kingpin of the drops operation in Crown Point, but that all got wiped out in the flood, so he's kind of not much of anybody now. But we find out from Squid that Victor was trying to boost Penguin's rims in the first episode at Squid's behest. So, and Squid knows more than we've been led to believe. He knows that Victor's been working for Penguin. He's like, what, you think you're big time now or whatever? Come on, cut me in. I want, we'll work on it or stuff. And he's like, okay, I'll ask. And he kind of backs off, and they kind of leave it at that for a bit.
Can I just say that the actor who plays Squid is doing a phenomenal stereotypical gangster job? I'm just saying. It's just like any other 2-bit criminal that I've seen in any show. Which, now that we're talking about criminals, can I just say that this episode of The Penguin is the most HBO episode that HBO has done in a while. The amount of fucks dropped in this episode is more than any other episode in the show thus far. I think whoever was writing it just said, hey, you know what I realized? We haven't had enough F-bombs. Let's just throw them all there. Like in the first 2 minutes, we got like 6 of them. Oh, it's amazing. I know it's HBO, it's R-rated, and you don't get that many F-bombs in the movies, but I'm just pointing out that this is the most F-bombs in this series so far.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, Francis and Sophia and Sal go over to Oz's apartment, and they break in, and they're looking around, and Sal takes the remote to turn on the fake fireplace with the music, and he looks at Sophia, and she's like, yeah. Like tacky.
I love that callback. They all do this tacky.
So they're going through the apartment trying to look for some type of leverage, and she's like, yeah, well, that's the thing. Oz doesn't have any relatives, nothing. And then Sal's like, wait, what's this? And he finds the picture of Francis and his brothers, and Sophia's like, oh yeah, it's his mom and his brothers. They're dead. He doesn't have any family. It's his greatest strength. And Sal gets really pissed off because he's like, oh yeah, he takes everything from me, and that guy's got nothing. And so Sophia gives him a golf club. She's like, "Here, practice your swing," and he just bashes everything on the desk, getting really upset. And Sophia goes into Oz's room, and the door's open, the big vault door, but there doesn't seem to be much inside the safety deposit boxes. I thought there would be more, but all she finds is the picture of Eve Carlo, his mistress, from the red light district. And
No
so she's
relation to Basil Carlo.
hmm?
No relation to Basil Carlo.
Right. Even though it is spelled the same. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I would like to say that that's just like a nice, little wink.
Yeah. Kind of like Squid, as we'll find out later in this episode.
Oh, yeah. Squid rhymes with another type of word, so we'll get to that soon.
So meanwhile, Penguin, he shows up back at the house at Crown Point, and he's looking for his mom, and he can't find her, and she's calling out for Oswald, calling for help. And he goes in the bathroom, and he finds her in the bathtub with ice cold water. She's been there like all night, and he helps her out of the tub and puts on her robe or whatever. And he's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, Mom," and he's trying to help her, and it does something which you see with dementia patients every once in a while, where they suddenly become aware. They're aware. Sometimes they're aware of the fact that they have dementia. And she tries to make Oz promise that if I ever get too severe, you'll help me die, because she doesn't want to be a vegetable. It's like, I don't want to be sitting there like all those other people staring out the window with nothing to do, shit myself, all that kind of thing. And Oz just can't believe what he's hearing, but to make her happy, he just agrees.
Yeah, I mean, no one wants to have that kind of conversation with their parent in any capacity, because it kind of makes it more real that they're slowly getting closer to the end. And Oz, like many people who deal with parents that have this kind of condition, which debilitates them not just mentally, but physically, they know in the back of their mind that it's only a matter of time, but they're trying not to think of it because they're trying to live in the now and not worry about what is the inevitable. I know me and my father, just to get a little bit personal here, I know me and my father have kind of joked in the past where he said, like, Ernesto, if I ever get to the point where I lose all feelings of my body and my faculties, I want you to take me to the highest peak where you can find me and toss me off the cliff. Now, granted, I'm obviously not going to do that, but we tend to joke about it because, my dad is now in his mid to late 60s and, he's pretty healthy, but I do, even at this point, have that thought in the back of my head. It's like, now we're in that territory where maybe not, but I like to live in the now and not in the future.
Yeah.
Oh, my grandmother, she turned 91 last week, and she comes and goes with her Alzheimer's or dementia symptoms. I mean, my grandmother calls me sometimes in November to wish me a happy birthday, and my birthday's in June. I just play along with it because the first and last time I corrected her, you can hear the silence on the other end of the line, and you can tell that, oh shit, and she felt very embarrassed. So ever since then, I just, you know what, if she wants to call me in any other month other than my birth month to say happy birthday, I am going to treat it as if it's my birthday, because why bother correcting her? It's going to make her sad.
Exactly.
Yeah. So I relate to this as much as Oz does right now.
I've got that running in members of my family too, so I've been dealing with that too. So
yeah, it's very relatable.
It is.
Of all characters to have us discuss about the relatability of dementia and Alzheimer's, it's Oswald Cobblepot.
Ash says, love his strategy here. Let's give free samples. Get everyone hooked and they'll come back for more. Absolutely.
First taste is always free.
Yes. Ash says, the picture of Eve, my heart was pounding in that scene. Then the confrontation was wild. If she was across from me with a gun like that, I would be thinking I'm dead. And we'll be getting to that soon.
Yeah.
Ash also says, I have the gene for Alzheimer's and nothing is scarier than losing your mind. Like she said, it's a disease that takes everything. That it is.
Yeah. I think out of all the diseases, I think that one is the most cruel, because one day you feel lucid and then the next day you feel like it's 30 years ago. Like that's really cruel as far as diseases go.
Yeah. So meanwhile, back at the Falcone mansion, Sophia's been playing some sex games or whatever with Julian. And she kind of just unties him from the chair and just opens the door. Like, okay, I'm done. You can get out now. And he's like, what are you doing? It's like, I gotta go to work. Funny.
Very nonchalant, just leaves him with scratches all over his back and chest.
Yeah. Victor, meanwhile, is back with Squid. He's arranged the meeting, and he's like, "Oh, well, we're not really recruiting guys right now, but I understand this used to be your territory, so I respect that now that we're working here." So he hands him a few $100 bills, and Squid just tosses the money away. He's like, "What, you think you can buy me off?" It's like, "Let's go see your boss." And he's like, I don't think it's a good idea, but he pressures him into doing it. And Victor's like, "Well, he's probably not going to be back for a few hours." He's like, "Okay, I'll wait." And he's like, okay, it's this way." And they're walking along, and he's getting frustrated. And then Victor just suddenly spins around and pulls out a gun and shoots Squid in the throat. And he dies very slowly, choking on his own blood. And Victor is very apologetic and distressed about it, but then he flees the scene, leaving the money behind. And it's like, yeah, kid, you've crossed over now.
Yeah. You know what else rhymes with squid? Squib with a B, which is what his neck looks like.
Yes, indeed.
See, it rhymes. It's poetry.
Yes.
Although, before this, Victor tells Oz that, hey, we got a problem. But Oz isn't really paying attention or giving it too much thought because he's busy with something else. And I wonder if that was Oz just not being aware that he's not paying attention, or if he's doing it on purpose to show Victor he needs to sometimes take care of his own problems.
Ash says poetry. You're right, because Victor did try to tell Oz about that problem, and Oz was totally not listening because he was trying to get the generators working because he's frustrated that they keep having little brownouts and other blackouts in the during their operation. So he goes back.
But do you think he was purposely ignoring him, or do you think he was trying to nudge Victor into cleaning up his own mess?
He might have been nudging him, but then again, it seems like when he's like, "Oh, we have a problem." If I were Penguin, I would probably want to pay attention to what the problem is, but perhaps he was listening and just pretending not to. Gotcha. See what would happen as another test.
Yeah, because Victor at some point is gonna, like, if you want to be in this, where you're gonna have to start taking care of problems like this, and Squid was going to become a problem. Now, granted, Squid is an easy person for Oz to take care of, clearly. But Victor, he's not, the only thing that Victor has only had 2 moments where he's had to man up in a way. One was with the corrupt police officer to make sure that the car did not get towed or whatever. So he had to think on his feet right there and get the officer to leave. And then the other one is when he had to save Oz from the Maronis. So he's got to get that kick in the ass. And I think this is one of those like trial by fire situations where he needs to be like, hey, you want to roll with the big kids? You're going to have to do some big kid stuff.
Yeah. And,
but he keeps descending into the madness of the criminal underbelly. So,
yeah, because when Victor goes back to Oz, he doesn't tell him what he did, but Oz understands.
Because he's been there before. He knows that look.
Yeah. Ash says, yeah, that line, "it gets easier," is so chilling. Yeah. Because Oz just knows.
Well, considering how much of a trigger-happy person Oz can be.
Oh, geez, yes.
It does get easier.
Yeah. Ash says it's not something you want to get easier, but at the same time, it's too late to turn back now. Absolutely.
Also, have you noticed, I don't know if this is just like a thing that you know how every time somebody shoots a person for the first time, the next thing that comes out of their mouth is puke? Victor hasn't puked. I wonder if that's just a thing that happens in TV and the movies, or is this?
Yeah, that's a dumb thing they do in TV and movies.
Okay, well, I always thought that was just a natural reaction that you're so like, holy shit, I killed someone, and then you get sick to your stomach.
Yeah. So, meanwhile, Penguin, frustrated, or not meanwhile, but after Victor tells him, he's like, he gets easier, and he's frustrated with all the repeat brownouts and power outage shit, and he's like, that's it, I'm going to go deal with this problem. And he takes off to go do whatever he's going to do. Meanwhile, Sophia goes to the red light district, and she's questioning some prostitutes about Eve, and they're like, hey, we don't know, we haven't seen the bitch, and they walk away. But then this girl, Roxy, comes forward. She's like, yeah, I can help you find her for the right price. And so she takes Sophia to the apartment, and Eve admits Sophia, and she's like, yeah, I'm the one who had Roxy bring you up here because I don't want you, harassing the other girls. And she's like, if you think I'm a valuable hostage, I'm not. Oz wouldn't come and rescue me because I kind of ditched him because I'm done with this bullshit. And they kind of going back and forth on this for a bit, and Sophia has the gun, and she's looking at all the outfits that she has and all the wigs, because Eve's not all dressed up right now. She's like, do you do this for the job, or you just do this like at all for him? And she's not really interested in talking about that. And of course, Eve thinks the whole time that Sophia's going to kill her. And so she says, look, you can, kill me or whatever, but leave the other girls alone. They have nothing to do with it. And there's no reason for you to be bothered by them. And she's like, I know you don't care about the other girls, like Yolanda and Savage. So she starts mentioning the names of the victims. And Sophia pauses for a minute because she was going through Eve's stuff. And she looks at her very tellingly. She's like, well, you still think I'm the hangman? And Eve is kind of taken aback. And she's like, no. My father killed those women. And Oz, and he trusted what Oz had to say about it. Like, Oz screwed me over. He got the iceberg lounge. Oz doesn't give a shit. Don't you think for a second that Oz cares about you or any of yours. And Eve is genuinely shocked by this, but she also believes her. And so Sophia decides that, I'm not going to kill you, because she believes what Eve is telling her, that Oz wouldn't care, probably wouldn't do anything. And she's just figuring, fine, she's just going to leave. And Eve is still kind of, shocked, because she didn't think, because the way Sophia put it is like, Oz knew that Carmine killed all those women, and he kept his mouth shut about it. He didn't care. In fact, he just used that to further his way up the ladder. And Eve is just so disgusted by it that she just rats out Oz's location. She's like, Crown Point, near the old zoo. That's where he is. And I think, the zoo again. And Sophia's like, okay, thanks, and just leaves her be.
Yeah. I think Oz cares about her, but at the same time, I also believe that Eve is the kind of person that, look, I am loyal to Oz, but that loyalty has a limit, and that was the limit. Because even if Eve never told her anything, that wouldn't stop Sophia from coming back, and she needs to guarantee she never comes back.
Right. And Eve could just tell from the way Sophia, who is almost completely disinterested in their conversation up to that point, just going through all her stuff, the way she stopped and gave her that look, it was like, I'm not the hangman. And Eve was like, oh shit,
I'm not the hangman, but if you want me to be the hangman, I can.
Yeah, she's like, if you want me to be, I can.
I can take out every single one of your girls until you tell me where Oz is, and I can and will do that. Like, she could walk away, not do anything at that moment, then she can come back the next day. Okay, I changed my mind. Come over here.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what? This reminds me, this whole exchange, not just the exchange, but the setting with the prostitutes, that reminds me of Year One. When Batman has that interaction with Selina Kyle, because at the time, Selina Kyle was not only a cat burglar, but she was also in the sex work business. So it's like one of those little nods. I'm not saying that it's not unheard of for there to be prostitution, but when it comes to DC Comics, a lot of prominent characters did come from prostitution. One being Selina Kyle in Frank Miller's version of the character. But continue.
Yes, that was a really great tense scene, because for a second I thought she was actually going to kill Eve, and I was surprised at the way the conversation went. Penguin, meanwhile, goes outside some club somewhere, and he sees some guys in police uniforms, and the ones with all their badges and their metal military guys or whatever. There's another guy in a wheelchair, and he's kind of skulking around by these cars watching, and he waits until this one guy shows up, a councilman, and the guy can barely get in the car because Oz parked directly next to him, and then Oz just reaches up and grabs him and throws him against this, like, hey man, or doesn't grab him initially. It's like, hey, oh, councilman, you remember me? I'm Oz. You owe me some debts or whatever. He's like, no, I owe Carmine some debts. He's like, wait, you don't think you gotta pay me back too? And he's just gonna brush him off. He doesn't really care. And Oz is not gonna have that shit. So he just, gets up in the councilman's face, pins him up against the car, and he gets out these vice grips and grips his nostrils with it. It starts squeezing really hard. And he's like, yeah, well, I know that you paid off your gambling debts by stealing city funds. And I'm like, oh, maybe he would have been a Riddler victim at some point, And he's like, oh, what do you want, Oz? It's like, and Oz is like, you better turn the power back on to Crown Point, you rich fuck. You've been giving it all those rich people and letting all of us starve and letting us all freeze to death. Like, no, give us our goddamn power back. He's like, do you have any idea how much red tape I gotta? And then he just squeezes the pliers even more, and the guy's like, like all freaking out about it. And he and Oz is like, no, you got to get it back up today, by tonight, or tomorrow morning, whatever he says. And it's like, okay, I'll do it. And then he cuts him loose, and he doesn't even call for help, even though the cops are right down there, because Oz has got that dirt on him, and so then he drives off. Yep. And it's like, again, Oz knows who to get dirt on in this city.
But at the same time, we have seen this behavior from Oz before, especially when it comes to personal attacks against him or his mother, and he's like, hey, I need you to get the power on, like the most basic of requests, and he had to resort to being a mob boss to get that done.
Yes. And so he goes back to the city, or back to where back to Crown Point to continue his next phase.
Expansion.
The next phase is what he calls the Gold Summit, which is the title of the episode, where he's gotten a bunch of rival gangs, including the ones who had their guys killed, and Feng Zhao of the Triads, all to meet up in this parking lot. And Oz gives this beautiful speech where he's like, look, and the first guy, before he even starts talking, the guy who lost 3 of his men starts bitching at him. He's like, oh, it's just your fault. All the guys got killed. Hey, me. It was Sophia Moroni. And he's like, oh, but it was you. He's like, what's stopping you from getting vengeance? It's like, it's right over there. They're right over there across the bridge. They ain't even hiding. And everybody just kind of looks at him almost like he's right. And then he looks at the Triads, and he's like, your ancestors built that damn bridge. And you guys, we're the ones who work here. We eat all their shit all the time, and they give us shit just so we can eat the shit. And we're done taking this crap. He's like, we're done with this shit. We're gonna rise up against. It's time to take back Gotham. All this stuff, and he hands out all these beer bottles or cans of beer from an ice chest in the back of the pickup truck, and he symboled by opening it, and other people who start opening it are agreeing with him. And he's like, why do we all hate each other over bullshit? That's what the rich people want. They want us at each other's throats. He's like, why are we listening to the old guard of Sophia and Moroni, or what the fuck they call themselves now? He's like, whatever
the fuck.
Yeah, whatever the fuck they call themselves. He's like, we don't have to listen to the old guard. All that shit's done now. We're done. He's like, let's band together. We're the people we hate, and let's steamroll these fucks and get after all those rich people who've been putting us down in all the corrupt city, all this kind of stuff. Let's take back Gotham. And then the others are kind of nodding their agreement and going along with it. Start opening all the beer bottles or beer cans, and Feng Zhao from the or Zhao from the Triads is the last to go along with it, despite that he warned everybody. That Penguin is a guy who can't be trusted. He betrays everybody he works with. And Penguin's like, yeah, whatever, maybe that's true. I do shit to survive. So what? Everybody does what they got to do to survive. But right now we're dying. We need to do something about it.
Yeah, so he pretty much comes clean with all his crimes.
He does. He's like, yeah, I killed Alberto. That's what gets them ultimately to agree with him. He's like, yeah, I popped Alberto, little rich fuck. I'm not sorry for it.
And they all could have walked away. They all could have walked away from the moment he confessed. Like, oh, well, why the fuck would I work with you if you just kill anybody who works for you or with you? But at the same time, they're just like, I'll fuck around and find out. Let's see what happens.
Yeah. That is the one thing Penguin does really well, is talking. He definitely has the gift of silver tongue. Yes.
I think in this case, it's a plum tongue.
Ash says, yes, the guy from Lost, he was the lead scientist of the Dharma.
The greatest conspiracy within the conspiracy of the show, the Dharma Initiative.
So he gives that big speech, and then meanwhile, back at the apartment, Victor's there with Francis, and all of a sudden the power comes back on, and a radio's playing, the lights are on. It's Victor was trying to warm up, and they're all celebrating, and he and Francis start dancing, and then in the doorway is Sophia with a crowbar. Like, oh geez, and how Francis is saying out loud, almost like she's singing it. Oh, Oz saved us. Oz got the power back on. Oh, it's Oz, and she's finally. I think that's the part that's really going to break. It's like finally when Francis really appreciates Oz or something that he did. He's not there to see it, and now Sophia is there with the crowbar. Just the golden goose just fell into my lap.
Yeah, you know how we've theorized what's going to happen to his mom.
Oh, this ending. What a cliffhanger, Ash says.
Jesus
Oh, absolutely.
Christ. Can I just say that in this episode, we've had 3 comic book references. Number 1 is The Diner, was created by Paul Dini, and it's been featured in the Arkham games and the series, animated series. Second, one of the bridges that Oz mentions in that speech is the Elliot Bridge. And if you and I both know the Elliots, it could only mean one Elliot. And again, it's a name drop, but it's a significant name drop. For those who don't know, the Elliots are Tommy Elliott's family, aka Hush, and best friend to Bruce Wayne. So something to think of. And lastly, it's not a direct comic book reference. It's just something that I've noticed. This is the 3rd time in this episode that we've seen a fucking crowbar, and somewhere out there, Tim Drake is having a cold sweat.
I know, that's like images like that. You just think you're waiting to see something like that. But in answer to your question, Ash, she asked, "Do you think she will kill them both, or will she leave his mother alone?" I think she's smart enough not to immediately kill the mother just for vengeance. I think she's smart enough to understand from what she saw there the fact that it's not just that the mother's life. It's the fact that Oz has been lying to her even longer about the fact that, oh, I have no family. My mother's dead. Which tells Sophia that, oh, wow, she isn't. It's not like, oh, it's just his mom. Like, he has a clear mama's boy, desperate type relationship with her. He wasn't even going to trust anybody in the mob to even know that she was around. So I think she's going to take her as a hostage because she knows that gives her the ultimate leverage.
She has the greatest bargaining chip right now.
Yeah, and Victor, and just kill Victor. Ash says maybe.
She's already
it seems like it would be logical.
She's already met Victor, and I don't think she would think twice about killing him.
Right, but the fact that they just had Victor really cross over the dark side to have him die at the beginning of the next episode, I mean, it would be a shocking twist, but it'd be a bit disappointing. So maybe they'll keep him. I think she might keep him alive because I think she could tell from who knows how long she's been standing there and observing it that clearly Francis is not all there, not going to be able to provide intel, but Victor can.
Yeah.
Unless they just set up an ambush. I mean, who knows? We'll see. But
it is going to be interesting because the first time Victor met Sophia, he was scared out of his mind just being in her presence. He was stuttering more than usual, and she was pretty much she wasn't even talking before she said a word to him, and he was a complete mess. Now he's going to have to put up or shut up.
Yeah.
Because he's the only person who can keep Oz's mom safe. And there is no stuttering in the world for him to fuck this up.
Now, I anticipate that Victor might tell them where the drug operation is, but I'm thinking that because of the Gold Summit, that Sophia and Sal's forces will be overrun. Like, yeah, they'll still have their bargaining chip, but I think that the gangs have come together. That's something that Sal and Sophia won't expect. And I think that's going to take them by surprise. They're probably going to try and use the same argument that the triads did, which is, oh, you can't trust him. He betrays everybody. And it's like, well, what have we ever gotten from you? You know, it's like, when have you ever cut us in on anything?
Now, here's one thing that I think is going to happen. I'm not entirely sure, but part of my gut feeling is that we start the next episode in the apartment. They turn around and they see Sophia standing in the hallway. There's going to be a confrontation between Sophia and Oswald's mom. She's going to have words with her. And I wouldn't be surprised. I'm not saying it's going to, but I wouldn't be surprised if she pushes her to the point where she just snaps and hits her with a crowbar over the head.
True. She may take them both hostage because you could tell the mother is important to Victor as well. Indeed. But I think we're gearing up for the big gang war.
Yeah, also, you don't want Sal finding out that his mom is alive. He would have a field trip with that.
Oh, for sure.
Especially the way he looked at the family picture. Hey, who are these people? Oh, they're dead. Oh, my God, this guy has nobody. Like, I have never seen a mobster be so disappointed in not having any leverage over anybody. God damn.
Yeah. Ash says, well, like Penguin's speech, it's the power grab. Sophia killed her family, which is where a lot of power comes from. And Sal is an old man on the run from prison. True, but at the same time, Sal doesn't seem like he's hiding very much. Like, he went into town to go to Penguin's apartment to search the place. And now it's like, I assume it because he's done that, he's probably going to accompany. I assume that it's Sophia's not down there by herself, at Crown Point.
Fortune favors the bold, I guess.
Yeah, so I guess that again, one of the things you just have to accept with the show is a plot contrivance of Sal. Oh, he broke out, so I guess he can just walk around freely. I was like, okay.
I think it's also fair to guess that even if he's been in Blackgate for as long as he has some juice still in town. So I think anybody that does see him goes, oh my God, it's Sal. No, stay away from him. Like, he's still Sal to a lot of people.
Yeah, and I was surprised to learn this week that because last time they mentioned that Squid ran the drops operation at Crown Point. Now we're learning that he was a former drug dealer. Now there's no more drops. We still haven't heard what the Maronis have done with the drops shipment that they seized from the Falcones in the second episode. Like, have they made use of that? And we still haven't heard about the renewal program. You think that would have affected the mobsters a lot, since presumably they don't have access to that money anymore.
Yeah.
But that's not something we've heard about either. So I guess the writers just kind of forgot about it. And I assume that's where the councilman got the money to pay off his gambling debts from renewal, I would assume.
I think because that is so tied to the political and law enforcement aspect of it that I don't see it. And because Falcone was also so tied to it that it would stand to reason that they've all lost access to it. So they need a new form of finance. So they can't really depend on the renewal program, which, by the way, that has to be a hefty lump sum for it to go around that much for everybody. I'm just saying.
Ash says, I mean, it is Gotham where bad guys run the place.
Yeah, it's also Gotham where stupid people get a little bit over their britches, like, Jesus Christ. Gotham produces idiots as much as it produces criminal masterminds.
Yes, it does.
Looking at you, Squid. Looking at you. Like, seriously, Squid has to be one of those characters, kind of like Vivi, where it's just like, oh yeah? Oh yeah? You think I give a shit that Oz is running that? You better tell your boss and take me to him. I'm like, do you realize who you're threatening right now? Like, seriously.
Facts, Ash says. Right, because Victor even promised him, hey, I'm going to bring you more money. It'll be even more next week, which it might have been more money.
It might have been. Even if he never met Oz, he's still getting free money.
Yeah, and it's like Squid has no crew with him anymore.
Like, I know greed is good, but greed is good to an extent.
But he has no crew with him anymore, presumably because they've deserted him with all the drops gone. Yeah. But it's like, yeah, it was so bizarre. Like, what did Squid think was going to happen? You're just going to march in there and talk shit to Penguin and get a job? It's like, what?
I also wouldn't be surprised if it's also Squid's ego getting in the way, where this nobody Victor is now close to a mob and he's getting paid probably more than Squid is getting money now. So he kind of takes that as an offense. And he's like, oh, no. You're not looking down on me, motherfucker. I want a piece of the cheddar. But hey, sometimes you are your worst enemy. And Squid found out the hard way. He became a squib. I love rhyming. It's poetry. And that's the episode.
Yeah, I think Victor should have grabbed the money when he left, because that's clues left behind potentially.
Yeah, but knowing Crown Point, they would have stumbled upon the body and be like, ooh, money.
That's right. Well, Victor even said it to him, but he'll kill you. And then after he killed him, he said, why did you do this?
No,
that's
Victor,
right. He did say that.
You did this, Victor. Do you think he was talking about Squid or about himself?
That's right. He could have been. Ash says Victor really didn't want this dude to end up dead. I disagree, Ash. I think he could care less, and I think his life would have been easier without Squid. Why did you do this? Yeah, I think he's referring to himself in the third person, because you could have just walked him back into Oz, and they would have been forced to deal with it, unless Oz would have taken that as, oh, you want to do this, and given him the gun and made him do it.
Yeah, that could have also been something that Victor would have had to come to grips with. Wait, no, I can't do it. No, you're going to do it, because this guy is not going to go away unless you take care of it. Now, either you do it.
Yeah, I think he would have realized that Penguin would be upset because, like you said, when Penguin's not really listening to him, when he's messing with the generator, he's like, oh, yeah, you could deal with it, that kind of thing. And if you brought him back in, he's like, oh, geez, because Penguin already told him that you've passed some tests before, room for growth and that kind of thing, and it wouldn't really work to bring a rival, antagonistic person into his operation, because then, yeah, you'd have to kill him. Because like you said, Squid's too stupid to live with the knowledge of what's going on. I mean, he does know what's going on. He's not a complete idiot.
Yeah.
But the idea that he thinks he could, barge his way in, it's like,
Yeah. Also, no offense, but when Squid makes the threat that he could take the information about Oz and the operation to the Gigantes and the remaining empire of the Maronis, if Squid thinks he's going to walk out of there alive, he's got another thing coming. I'm telling you right now.
oh, here's something Ash says, like, why did you make me do this, Squid? So yeah, so it's almost like Victor's blaming Squid, like, why did you make me do, like, why did you do this? Like, why did you make me do this, instead of taking ownership of it himself?
Yeah.
Because as upset as Victor was, he gets over it reasonably quickly when he gets back. He's still a little trouble, but he gets through it. But I noticed the same thing in the first episode, where he got over the death of his family pretty quickly, because it had only been a week, and he was.
I think I don't know. Maybe it's just I'm gonna try not to. What?
Some kids are tougher than others.
Yeah, but also, and again, I'll try not to be mean when I say this. This is just an observation. I think it's also probably due to the character's face expressions. Like he always looks like a charity case. Even when he's happy, he looks like he's sad. And I'm just like, my God, you're like this 24/7, aren't you? You sad, pathetic little man. Like, even if he's happy, his eyes always look sad. So I don't know, maybe he's just perpetually like that.
Yeah. Well, I as big as this cliffhanger was, I think next week's cliffhanger is going to be even bigger, right?
Yeah. Well, we got 2 episodes left, right?
That's right.
Oh boy. Well, most of our theories have either half of the time they've come true, the other half they've been kind of turned on their heads. So let's see how this next episode starts. Is it going to start with a shouting match? Is Sophia going to get the truth told to her face and she snaps and smacks Mama in the face? Or is Victor going to grow a set and actually defend this woman?
Exactly.
And
Ash says,
yeah.
Yes, they're going to tease us until the very end.
Goddamn tease. But again, the first taste is always free.
Yeah.
Well, that is all. Do we have any other comments? Any other mentionable?
I don't think so. I think that about covers it. So that's a good episode.
She's grown into that haircut that she has now, that messy hair that she has now, Sophia.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's now grown into that's like her image now.
Mm-hmm. Well, thanks for being here, Ash and Ben from Cinema Gulp and Lemon Pie. Yeah, thanks for showing up. This has been a fun stream.
It has been.
It has been, and we build up a lot of views over the week. Our previous video got 45 views eventually after having a couple live ones, so we're pretty good.
Yeah.
So yeah, we will be back here next time, perhaps next Monday or Tuesday, our usual time, likely.
Yeah, if it's within the cards, I'll be there.
Yep. Let's see, we have Halloween this week, and yeah, we'll be back in November. God, this year's going by so fast.
It is. I don't like it, but also I want to get it over with, especially the next 2 weeks.
Yeah, especially. Yeah.
Especially the next 2 weeks.
Yes.
Who knows? Maybe next week I'll be able to kill the orca. Who knows what's going to go happen?
Kill the orca.
But again, orcas are devious when it comes to getting food. So who knows? I might be a different scenario next time. The iceberg in the Caribbean might not be around. It might have melted by that point.
Yep. All right.
People, you all have a good night.
Yes. Good night. And we will see you next week.
Same bat time, same bat channel.
In the meantime, don't take everything so seriously. Goodbye.